Hey guys, how's everything going? This is JSer. Are you using GraphQL these days? Actually, I'm not. In my current company, in my current project, we have different teams for the front end and for the server side team. We discuss about the API interface and document it on the Swagger. And things works well, not that bad, but pretty smooth. But still, we don't think that this is the right solution. And it actually is a pity that we didn't take usage of the GraphQL. And I just recently took a look at the GraphQL documentation and immediately found that, and I believe that we should use GraphQL as a front-end dev. So here's why. Here's some of my thoughts. And yeah, as myself, as a front-end dev, API is a pain in the ass. I must say, if you have the same feeling with me. Okay, based on my current experiences, the first problem is that APIs are not in our control, but we define the UI, right? Sometimes we want these kind of data, and we need to ask the server-side team to build the API for us or adding some modifications to the API interface. But that's not in our control. We need to discuss, we need to arrange a meeting and doing some discussion and make a proposal, and maybe there's some back forth and maybe there's some agreement, and also maybe not an agreement, it's a disagreement, and there might be just some compromise in our daily work or compromise to the user experience. So the problem is that the usage of the API and the creation of the API are separate. This is for my case, and sometimes it improves actually productivity at the beginning, right? We don't expect everybody to be a full stack. Well, that's kind of make a mess, but separating the concerns with different teams focusing on different parts of the project kind of improve the process, but also leads to the problem of miscommunication, misunderstanding, or miscommunication of the same thing about the API. Okay, the second thing is that backend devs have different concerns, different ideas about the API design, right? They tend to design the API based on the database. They think that, okay, I have this kind of table, so I should return some data like this, even if that it is not well reflected on the UI. But as an API, I should provide it in case of some other cases, right? As a backend dev, they might think, okay, for performance reasons, I will put this part of the response as optional. If you want to get it, you must increment another parameter in a query or something. So they are creating APIs not purely on the UI. They are based on it without with their knowledge on the database, without the overall data design. So, but the usage, which is us, have different opinions on it. This is the mismatch of the API interface. And the third one is document hell. We actually, in my current project, at the beginning, we actually designed the API at the beginning, and then we create a mock on it, and then the front-end dev team started working on the mocks and started creating the UI, and the server side creating the API based on the agreed version of the interface. It's not the detailed version, but general design. Maybe there is some modification, altering on the naming, about but the general structure won't change after we decide working on it. This is kind of cool, but at the first, but it's kind of when the project grows bigger and bigger, it's actually not maintainable, because even for the server-side engineers, they don't actually know how to design the database because they are depending on the third provider. But because the project is so complicated, and so the designing of the interface at the beginning, it's not approachable, and it's not any longer. So we start document the API after we create it, and so the interface between this server side and the front end team is not consistent along the develop process. I mean, because now we are depending on the document maintained by specific maintainer, and the document needs to be updated to reflect the changes of the server-side implementation in real time, right? But actually, it's not that easy to achieve that. There is lag. Maybe somebody forgets to update the document after the pull request, so things starting to mess up. So the document hell is one of the problem, and the next problem is about the cross-platform needs for our front-end devs. When you're creating a web application for the mobile first or for the desktop first, and then the planner says, okay, let's make it cross-platform, and they're starting to create specs, UI specs for all the screen sizes, right? For the small, for the big, and then the cross-platform needs requires us to display different UI depending on different screen sizes, right? Different on different platform, or for even for the extreme case, for front-end dev, we might be asked to create the native applications, right, with any kind of Flutter or the hybrid implementation. Anyway, so this cross-platform needs us to add more and more variations for the API interface, and that's kind of a problem, right? If the API is designed and created by and maintained by the server-side engineers, every time you need API interface change, you need to ask them. And now every time a cross-platform needs came, we need to ask the server side to add the data or delete the data. It's not flexible anymore. Okay, the next one is performance concerns. When there's a new spec in the UI, and you need to create a new section consisting of different data from different APIs, and the server-side engineers just tell you that, okay, we already have this API, but it is distributed among different API endpoints. You just need to call the API and merge the data and grab the data you want. So you've already provided your API as the out of my concerns. So how you use it or how you fetch it is none of my business. So yeah, even if you care about your performance, okay, just solve it by yourself. So this is the case where the idea of the backend for the front end came, right? Yeah, calling multiple APIs to achieve one task is time consuming, as actually it's a waste of time. So us front-end engineers create out a server layer for ourselves. We use that server layer to grab data from the server side, and then just provide data we want for our UI. So actually, this is some steps, some I would say intermediate step towards the GraphQL, I would say. So this is about the performance concern. Okay, so next one is version path hell. As your project grows bigger and bigger, even for your server-side team, there will be multiple teams focusing on different domain of APIs, right? They are using some certain kinds of microservices approach. They group their APIs under different path, and using some reverse proxies, and to group all the APIs into one endpoint for us. And now there is a version hell. Yeah, and because for each different microservices, they have different versions. If you want to grab some data, you might together with this multiple API problem, you might grabbing some API A from version 1 and grab API B from version 1.5. Yeah, those path hell and version hell just to make front-end developers hard at working, right? Just to make it painful. Yeah, but they don't care. They just they say the backend engineers just provide with the pure API they want. So Okay, so the root cause for all of these problems actually is only one problem. Yeah, the front end engineers create the UI, they use the API, and backend engineers create the API. But APIs and the UI, the teams are decoupled, but the APIs and the UI are coupled. They are not. They cannot be easily or perfectly decoupled. Actually, there is no so-called perfect UI design. If it just doesn't work out. So the solution is actually, this is what the GraphQL does. Just make the backend opaque. I mean, so the idea is, if the server-side engineers cannot create the perfect response for the API, us front-end dev wants, then we just should query the database for ourselves, right? Of course, we cannot query the database directly in our client-side work. We just think of the server-side API as a proxy. We query and the server-side proxy that request to the database. This is a general idea, but more than that, actually we don't need to query the database. We could fetch another API to group the data for us. So this makes backend opaque, and I kind of like the similar to our backend for front-end approach, right? Kind of like, but this GraphQL is more, I would say, pure. Its own focus is on making the API work. So it's not about the front end. Actually, it's also working for any UI development, like the native any API. It's just it's an abstraction about the API. And here's the demo from the GraphQL homepage. We have an Express server serving the index.html, and we also have an endpoint of GraphQL, which routes to the GraphQL HTTP library. And there is the internal logic of the GraphQL, and this is a type. It says we support hello, and hello should be returning a string, and this is a root. That, like the implementation of the what actually exactly the data should be returned. So hello, we return hello world, and for the index.html, we see we just use fetch API. Traditional REST API give us the access to each endpoint by setting the path, right? We /hello, but if now we just fetch on the same endpoint and post it with the query. Okay, here's hello. Now let's see what we get. Yeah, we get the hello world, right? You see the network. It actually query the GraphQL and send the query, just like the database query, right? Okay, now this is a basic demo. Let's make it more powerful to demonstrate the power of GraphQL. So suppose we have complicated data like object, A, and it should be a string, and B, string, C, string. Like say, there are a lot of variations in our client side. Say sometimes we only want A, and sometimes we want B, and sometimes we only want C. So all these variations make the API design super complicated, super difficult, right? We may be adding some flags, right? In a query, say, okay, I only want one fields is A, and using some kind of like a query equals, okay, no, it's a fields equals A and B, something like this. So putting this, why it's asked to the approach, but if you want to say this is nested, like here is a D, and E, wow, that's gonna make the query super difficult to manage. Okay, anyway, this is an example here. Okay, AB object. Now the server side is actually opaque. It doesn't care about what UI uses the response. So we just implement it like object A, B, C, C. Okay, now in our client side work, we could create hello and object. Okay, should be, what is It should be like this. A. I think it should be like this. Yeah, you see now object has only A. If you want a B, then we just add the B here, and it will return us with the B. So this is the most powerful part of GraphQL, as the document says. It's ask for what you need, get exactly that. Yeah, the server side doesn't care about doesn't need to design for specific usage. Wow, this is the most powerful part, right? Okay, actually there is a client for this one. Let's open the GraphQL. This is for development. Actually, we have this kind of cool UI interface, allows us to query anything, like we get hello, and also we have the suggestion, date hello. We could now object A. Yeah, we have A, or we want all of them. C. Cool, right? Or we don't want hello. Yeah, we give us the flexibility of doing everything. And next powerful thing is that actually it supports the async functions. I mean, support promise. Let's say we have here as like a full, and the API should return a string and a full, but actually the full is a promise. This is a mock actually. This is a mock for fetching other API. So we just mock the API, set timeout, resolve, and resolve. Oh, not resolve, but resolve like bar. 1 second. So this is a mock saying the full actually calls an API for some time. It's a sync. It's not synchronous. And then let's fetch the full. Let's see what we get. Full. Wow, we just get bar, right? We don't. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, we get the bar. Now, okay, we need to reload it to avoid the error. Okay, we get the bar, and we don't even know what the backend does, right? It might be fetching the other API, or it might be just fetching the database. We can from querying the DB, querying DB. But for database, I think for GraphQL, it has better integration support for database. Yeah, it might be we just adding some boilerplate, and it will just enable querying for the whole database free. And here just mark for synchronous. Okay, so that's it. So that's our demo today. It's super powerful. Yeah, I like it, and I believe we should use it for our daily work. Okay, so this is a demo. Now our hands are freed as a front-end dev, as a UI developer. It's super cool. So yeah, GraphQL is powerful. We all knew that. Now, any concerns for it? As I said, I'm newbie to GraphQL without so much experience, but I can think of 2 concerns for GraphQL. The first one is that greater the power, greater the responsibility. What does it mean? In traditional REST APIs, each API is actually being fine-tuned, right, for the exact usage on the UI. Now, the UI developers have the full flexibility to query any data we want. So it's, the more the power, the more mistakes we tend to make, right? For server side, maybe you query some data you shouldn't query, or you query something too complicated that we not with that requires a super intense computation. And yeah, we need to care more. I would say you need to do it carefully, to in order not to mess things up. So yeah, the first one, the more flexibility, more error prone we are. Okay, the second one is for simple apps, maybe just REST just be good enough. You don't need it. So GraphQL is too powerful that you don't need it, right? Yeah, that's true. like for Next.js, like kind of modern tech stacks to create web applications. They are so powerful, they can do everything. But if you're just creating a blog, maybe you can just use pure HTML. It doesn't matter actually. It's just a work as good as enough. Yeah. So sometimes we don't need to choose the most powerful tools. We just need to choose the best suited, right? It's just we need to consider the cost performance. Yeah, so that's it. Hope it helps. Actually, I learned a lot from this demo, and yeah, hope it helps. See you next time. Bye bye.